Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to your favorite show, Hot Takes. And today we have a very dynamic and important personality on our hot seat. He's the international president and founder of Christian Central Chapel International, and he's the publicity secretary of PFN, Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, amongst many, many other hats he wears. And we have the privilege of having on our seat the Archbishop-elect and Bishop, Dr. Emmah Isong. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Yes, so we are going to start the show by playing a very relaxing game. We call it 5 questions, top 3. So are you ready to play?
Okay.
So the first question is that we know you've been to over 54 countries.
52.
52 countries in the world. What are your top 3 countries?
America, Britain, and of course, Zambia.
Wow, amazing choices. And then we also know that in these countries, when you're traveling, there are some items you must carry with you. What are the top 3 items that must always be in your luggage?
Wedding ring, wristwatch, and shoes.
Wow, compulsory. And then this is a bit deeper. What are the top 3 principles that you live by?
Hate betrayal. And number 2, I love to give. And I think my number 3 principle is family. Care for family. I've just spoken with my wife and grandchildren.
Wow.
Yes.
We know that you're one of the ministers of the gospel that has dissected the word so many times, and you bring out scriptures that we don't even know. We've not seen it in that fashion. What are your top 3 Bible verses?
John 16:33. And then Romans 12, verse 1 and 2. And I will not forget John 1, verse 11 and 12. He came to his people and they refused him. I don't mean Akwa Ibom and Cross River people. And then as many as received him, he gave them power. So that encouraged me a lot.
And last on the list is, what are your top 3 books that you've written, or the ones you haven't written? Top 3 books.
Thy Father and Thy Mother, Be of Good Cheer, then Good Cheer in Storms.
Written by you. Awesome. So you've had a very elaborate ministry and run as a minister of the gospel. On the 26th of October, we have a 5-star celebration. We'll be celebrating your 60th birthday. We'll be celebrating 40 years of your call and 35 years in marriage, 15 years of being a bishop, and your installation as an archbishop. Congratulations,
Thank
Bishop.
you so much.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
So 40 years in ministry is quite a long time. What would you say are your most challenging experiences in these 40 years?
I did not have any problem with God. He's faithful. I did not have problem with Satan. I'm more powerful than him. He fears me. Interestingly, I have problem with man. And that is in the area of betrayal. When people you love and care for and trust turn their back against you, it's the worst moment, not only of the preacher man, of a politician, a businessman, the worst moment. And the reason I say worst moment is because you may be tempted not to trust again, and that's where your downfall will come. And so, worst moment in the sense that you still have to trust other people. And despite what other people do to you, you must still keep trusting other people. Yes.
Still trust. Then a lot of people ask me and ask others that what has kept this man so consistent? The longevity is a mystery to some, and not just consistent but authentic, has not derailed from his path, and so versatile. So what will you say has been your secret of longevity in ministry?
Focus. If you remember, the man in front of the ball asked to kick the last penalty in a walk-off final. If you have that idea on your head, you are the last player, other teams have kicked, your team have kicked. This is the last ball, and it is your goal that will decide who takes the cup. how focused you'll be is equivalent to the answer I can give you.
Wow, focus. That's a strong point. And then we see that these days of social media and the internet, there's a lot of criticism of men of God, of their flamboyance or their wealth. We'd just like to have your take. What do you think about these criticisms?
Yeah, there are three things to consider. If you notice, as soon as you flip your phone or laptop, the only message you will see is about men of God. Yeah, so there are three things I will help viewers to note. Number one, it shows that these men of God who were never do wells of yesterday and the mediocres of yesteryears are now played into the front burner of international event. It's, to me, positively is for recognition, because if you are a topic of discussion, you have been recognized. But number two, it is also a program of the Antichrist. The only people now who are holding the full manifestation of Antichrist government and of the man of sin and of the extremism of Satanism are the pastors. They preach against homosexuality. They preach against every other thing you want to do in the society, which the Antichrist will do. So if I were Satan, I will make them to be attacked on bloggers. I will watch their dirty linen outside. I will hire people and programs and journalists to make sure they finish them, because they are the only people on my way. If I were Satan, I will make sure. And number three reason, Jesus is coming soon, so it's a sign of the end time. Speaking against pastors, you read that Timothy said in the last days, people will have itching ears and gather for themselves teachers with itching ears. And also, last days, people will be lovers of themselves and haters of God. So if you can hate God, then it means his prophet is a person that's blocking you from really hating God. So people don't see God. They see these pastors.
40 years of ministry has been amazing. God has been so faithful to you and the ministry. What will you hope to achieve in the next phase of your ministry, especially as you're becoming an archbishop? What's the next phase for you?
Archbishop elevation, 40 years of ministry, 35 years of marriage, and so on and so forth. The 5-star celebration, it's an elevation on its own. That's why we said you ordain a pastor. People don't know this. Then you consecrate a bishop. But you don't consecrate an archbishop, you elevate an archbishop. So the ceremony of an archbishop is simply an elevation, because the archbishop has already been consecrated as a bishop. Now he wishes, or he wishes to have other bishops under his control. So it's like the senior prefect of a class 3. So it's not that it's no more in class 3, it's still in class 3, but it's a senior prefect. This is where people misunderstand. I have up to 25 sons and daughters now, whom we have nominated, including my wife, to be bishops. And I have to seek for an elevation to, in a way, become a prefect of the class, what we call College of Bishops. And you cannot be the supervisor and inspector and director of a college where there are other bishops if you are not prima facie, first among equals. So you must be elevated so that's to be given that administrative responsibility of supervising other bishops. That's why in some churches, they don't really call them archbishop. They said Bishop XYZ, the archbishop of so diocese. Okay. That's why if you see, I don't want to mention the name of the church, you see them say Bishop XYZ, the archbishop, because it's an office, not really a title. People say it's not in the Bible. I say, well, senior prefect also is not in the Bible. Why do you allow your children to be made senior prefects? Mm-hmm. So it's a prima facie thing. It's something you are now lifted to become the inspector, supervisor, and director of other bishops. You give direction to other bishops under you. For instance, if a bishop in a certain church commit a crime or make a mistake, you don't expect his colleague bishop to punish him. You expect an archbishop to call him to Calabar immediately, he goes. And of course, by level of seniority, and seniority carries authority, which is embedded in hierarchy. So that is the doctrine. Administrative is administrative. It's not demonic. It's not somebody that has backslided. When some people hear you are going to be Archbishop, they say, oh, this man, he has finally fallen. No, just like in the school, you have the assistant lecturer, the lecturer. Then you now have the PhD holders, who are the supervisors. Then you now have the heads of department. Then you now have the professors. And when people become professors, their family don't go sad and cry and say, oh, he's no more a lecturer. A professor is still a lecturer, but he is now is a lecturer of the other lecturers and possibly a guru in that field. So that is the essence of the elevation. We don't call it ordination. We don't call it consecration. You call it elevation. It's a ceremony of recognition vis-a-vis other members of the college.
Wow, Bishop, thank you for that information. It's very informative because many people wonder what's the difference between the rank of a bishop, a pastor, and archbishop.
It's a responsibility.
Awesome, awesome. So we also see you play in the field of politics, and you were the immediate past chairman of the Cross River State Anti-Tax Agency, and you've been newly appointed, to be a member of the Religious Advisory Council in Akwa Ibom State. How do you balance ministry and politics?
Ministry is the divine call I carry on my head. Why governmental and social and political responsibilities are the paraphernalia which are a result of my giftings and talents. Like I was explaining somewhere in a radio station. Most of the ministers you see behind the pulpit today have not backslided when they start running motivational programs, when they start participating in social cultural programs. Rather, they have taken into, and let me correct this. When once you say you are a bishop, you are saying, I'm advisor to rulers. I'm a prophet to government. That's what you are saying. Bishopric is a governmental grace. So there's no way you can function as bishop, for instance, or archbishop, and you don't participate in the social engineering of your community. In America, one of those that fought the anti-black movement was Reverend Jesse Jackson. And in Southern Africa, one of those that helped to fight apartheid was Archbishop Desmond Tutu. You've heard that name severally. And I can present to you several other bishops. Bishop Coker is already coming up, is emerging. Even the man that comes from Kenya to speak against corruption, called Professor Mulumba, he's a reverend minister. So there are quite a lot of us who carry extra ministerial gift, just like a politician who is a governor still playing golf and playing table tennis and playing football. So the people carry graces and giftings and talents, and those talents are contributory to the social, socio-cultural, political engineering of their community, and nothing is wrong if they lend their hands. Instead of sitting behind the pulpit and preaching against government, it's important we run, because light shines only in darkness, and salt is useful only inside the hot pot of soup. If you bought salt and kept in the shelf, it's not going to be additive or useful to the soup. So the salt must jump into the soup, must enter. And there's no way for the woman to say, this is salt too. And the Bible says we are the salt of the earth. And how does salt contribute outside the soup? If you are the salt of the earth, the soup are the activities of government going on. And if you are the salt, and you are too holy to join the crayfish and the stockfish and the bitter leaf inside the pot to add flavor, I wonder how the soup will be palliative to your generation.
Speaking of being too holy, a lot of people doubt that you can't be in politics and keep your hands clean. They assume that everybody in politics...
Yeah, let me correct that. Politics is different from governance. I'm not in politics. I'm in governance. Okay. Now, people have to, just like immediately after election, politics is over. And the next thing you see is governance. Politics is a process of electioneering campaigns and selection of candidates towards choosing leadership. That's politics. And a lot of things go on there. But governance is after politics and government has been sworn in. Stakeholders and shareholders, policy holders, social influencers and spiritual influencers will be needed by those who were elected to help steer the boat of government. And since we are all citizens, we owe the Federal Republic of Nigeria and our generation the constitutional responsibility of participating in governance, not only by constructive criticism, but by also positive contributions. So when people say the bishop is in politics, it's a misuse of English. Rather, is involved in governance. Because what the bishop does in his church, besides some bishops that have big churches, he's doing governance. He's doing governance. And you can see churches are succeeding more than government. That's why even some government are jealous of churches. Because you have, right now in Nigeria, a church can build 100,000 seater. And government is yet to finish primary school. In their state, they are still talking of superb, superb. And if you hear the number of billions they mention, budget, government budget is 32 billion, 500 billion. Churches don't have up to 10 million in a month. But they are building universities and changing lives. So I think there's nothing wrong if government, who had so much billions and trillions, don't even succeed as these churches, small churches. Some run on a budget of 20,000 naira as offering on a midweek service. And yet if you see these pastors, they dress well, they eat well, and they impact their members. Some of you were here, you are in our church. I feed my members, I donate to my members, I support their weddings, I buy them cars, buy them wristwatches. Their local government chairman is yet to find out if they have eaten. So people should know that we are not into politics, we are into governance. Because what we do at our little sphere is already governance. We already know what we are doing. And I pray one day, just like in Malawi, just like in other countries, government should fall into the hand of a pastor. Of course, it's already happening in Benue State, a reverend father. It's happening in Cross River State, a pastor, and it's happening in Akwa Ibom, a church founder of a Pentecostal church, and a pastor, ordained pastor from his own ministry. He's a governor. And if you look at those three states, you see the level of tranquility and development, because the pastor simply is called and ordained by God for governance.
Awesome to distinguish between governance and politics. That's very good. And then we now wonder if the polity of Nigeria has been heated up for a very long time. So we would like you to give an advice. What advice will you give to the current government in terms of economy, in terms of structure, and in terms of what we can do better in the next election to have a better electoral process?
Let me not speak only English. Let me give them things that can be enumerated to deal with prices of commodities. The government need to study only one basic law of demand and supply. Because in econometrics, when demand is high and supply is low, prices increases. But when demand is low and the supply is higher than demand, price falls. So federal government of Nigeria, listen to this simple economics. So what you have to do now is to make supply higher than demand. And how do you do that? Take example rice. Take example other table food. So increase production by employing the unemployed youths of Nigeria and attack a certain stable food or product. When once you do that, there will be so much supply and of course so little demand. In economics, you don't pray, you don't fast, prices will crash. When one supply is higher than demand, prices will crash. And the only way supply can be higher than demand is increased production. An increased production will lead to increased employment. An increased employment will lead to reduction in the number of youths on the street, which will vis-a-vis lead to reduction in social tension and crime. So that's my English number one. Number two, there are so much kangaroo padding of government budget, especially from the National Assembly. And the state assemblies are even worse than the National Assemblies. Many figures quoted in front of agencies, ministry, department, and agencies are not realistic, because a government budget is supposed to be the amount of money expected. So you cannot be borrowing money into your budget and running a deficit budget and then using that borrowed money to live a flamboyant life or a bloated civil service life. So when once we can deal with the reality, the realism of the budget. What I mean by realism of the budget is real figures, real projects, real constituency projects, real people, real totals, not this thing we are padding. The padding of the budget in which parliamentarians go home with trillions and billions of naira called constituency project, which does not trickle down to the majority of the indigent masses, is a cause of the lacuna, financial gap that is being placed. So there is a gap between production and input and output. That gap is what you are saying, the shaking in the economy. That means we are not realistic. For instance, naira was never realistic to the dollar. We're just pretending, and we're hoarding those dollars and using them for our self-aggrandizement. And now, when we just blow the bottom of central bank and blow and remove what we call subsidy, you see how we're totally disgraced in vis-a-vis other currencies, including Cameroon currency. Here we have been totally disgraced. So the government should work on these areas and make sure that things trickle down to the minority or majority of the people in the rural communities. And you cannot do that without good road, without electricity and other amenities of life.
That's a brilliant submission. Brilliant submission. So I'll move away from the politics a bit, and what we are also celebrating on the 26th of October is 35 years in marriage. And in this day and age, some people can't marry for 5 minutes. So we want to know, what does it take to have a successful marriage?
It takes a stupid man to marry a foolish woman. Then the marriage will be successful.
Wow. Wow.
If you are not ready to take nonsense, please don't marry. Tolerance, endurance. You stomach things. You'll be ready to be insulted if you're a man, and you'll be ready to be assaulted if you're a woman. So it takes a stupid man to marry a foolish woman to have a beautiful home, filled with tranquility, filled with joy and laughter, and beautiful children and grandchildren, and flowers. So the man, the woman you see having that wonderful marriage of whatever years does not mean that the man is an angel and the woman is neither also an angel. So are you willing to look beyond your shoulder and take your wife's, excesses, and your husband's deficiencies? The weaknesses and strength of the man will be exchanged in the ring, boxing ring called marriage. Can you take that bullet? Can you stand the moment which you can kneel down before your husband and say, I'm sorry? And you too, Mr. Man, can you condescend so low to telling a woman, sometimes you're older than her, and said, darling, I'm wrong, forgive me? Can you stand that? So that's why I said, two wise people cannot marry. They marry, it will break in 3 hours.
Wow, that's a brilliant one. It takes a stupid man, marry a foolish woman. Tolerance, very important. So you mentioned family being one of the core principles or core values that you live by. So we just want to ask, what are some of those family values that keeps your family closely knitted throughout these years?
I have a policy. If you have money, you share your money into 5 groups. Any money you have. First, God, in terms of your tithes and offering. And secondly, you give to the poor. And thirdly, of course, secondly, give to the man of God that prayed for you. so in the man of God's life. And thirdly, the poor, the widows, the poor and needy. And number 4, your family, especially your immediate family. And number 5, yourself. If you have heard me teach, those are the way your 5,000 naira should go, 50,000 naira should go. Once you have 10,000 naira, you pay your tithes and give your offering. You remember the prophet, the man of God God used to prophesy to you. There was a time you were down. He spoke to you and you made the money. And number 3, the widows and the needy. Number 4, your family. And number 5, yourself. Yourself, because I've seen many people who are rich and they have abandoned themselves. They die in sickness, they die in hunger. So you must take care of yourself, but as the last thing to do. So that's one of the secrets for me. Family is part of my budget. Last week, I had some money with me. I asked for the account numbers of all my children, and I sent them, and they didn't ask for money. They also give me money, but I sent them money because I finished, I did the calculation. I did my tithes, so it came to number 4, and the children were there, and I credited the account because it's part of my responsibility to watch over them. So you cannot be a successful man if you don't watch over your wife and children as part of your responsibility.
Wow, that's brilliant. I think I happen to be one of the beneficiaries of that, of that alert. Yeah, so you've been 60 years on earth, 40 years in ministries. What are the most significant lessons that you can share with us from your life, from your journey?
Trust only God. Love man. And be kind to the weak. To me, that's a guiding principle. Apart from the Holy Spirit that is in you at the moment you give your life to Jesus Christ and become born again, just trust in God, love man, and then show kindness and compassion to the weak. That's all. If you have that, it encapsulates every other principle you are going to discuss for 2 hours. You show love and respect and trust to God. You show love to mankind and compassion to the weak and the vulnerable. Yeah.
Wow, so lastly, as we look forward to this great 5-star celebration, what are some of the milestones and goals that you hope to achieve in this next phase of your life?
Before I tell people about what I will achieve next phase, we have to also find out what God has done in the last 60 years. Primarily, we have seen mighty move of God, like we said, over 52 nations in 5 continents in the past 40 years. In Cross River State, for instance, we have built one of the most outstanding churches that is in the South, and nobody is questioning that. And that building stands tall, even above some government buildings. And also we have watched lives grow from even the time they marry to the babies that we dedicated on this altar have come back with PhDs to donate back to the church. And some are still in the church. And some are active in the church. They were the babies of yesteryears who the mother led to Heritage Club are now the movers and shakers of ministry. That's interesting. And minus the physical project of expansion of church branches in London, in Nigeria, in America, we also have human beings which we can boast. We have built up human capacity and empower the youths and help government to rise. Different successive governments in Cross River State have always recognized the gifts and the grace, prophetic gifts and grace upon our life. Even at the federal level, when we prophesied during Yaradua that this is who will be president, but he will not finish the first term, people almost left the church. And it came to pass, not that we rejoice over somebody's death. So those perfect, near perfect, and extremely perfect prophetic fulfillment are what we can take to the table, and nobody, even those who hate us, during our prophetic night, the people that don't like me, they are on phone writing down the prophecies. One of my friends told me, said, I always copy all your prophecies. I said, but you don't come to our church. I said, I don't believe in your church, but I believe in your prophecies. So I don't know how that happens. So then what are we achieving this next phase? We leave it to the grace of the Holy Spirit, because the Bible says in the book of James, when we speak, we should say, by the grace of God. So by the grace of God, we are going to take the ministry to another dimension. We are going to enter into real estate. Members don't know this yet. Real estate. Where we are not just going to be praying for people's rent. We will be believing God to crash the rent for people who feel they are serving God, to pay if they can afford and stay there. We're going to expand schools, and of course, our university, Seven Angels University, will take it up to the 12th level. You know, there are 12 levels that established university, and we have finished 6, just remaining 4. That's why we've been in the cooler, and in this coming period, we will pick it from the cooler and hit the number 12 level, and other schools at primary level and secondary school level. Not to talk of evangelism. We believe God for the 18 local government of Cross River State, 31 local government of Akwa Ibom State, 771 local government of Nigeria, and the 54 countries in Africa, and the 198 countries of the world. We are believing God for the anointing of missions to fall on us, to go and win souls. That's the primary thing. Every other thing shall be added unto us.
Amen. Amen to that. So before we bow out, some people believe that the bishop only feeds on manna from heaven and spiritual meals. So we want to play a little game in the spirit of celebration to make them know that the bishop is also human. So this game is called This or That. So we're going to ask a question, and you just choose the one you like and prefer. So first on the list is afang or egusi?
Who wouldn't miss afang?
Apple or mango?
I don't like apple, please. Don't even mention it. Shouldn't have brought the mango.
Coca-Cola or pamplemousse?
I don't want to talk there. It's a clash there. It's a clash there. But surely pamplemousse.
Wow.
If I say pamplemousse for 2 weeks while I'm in Cameroon, I will never taste Coca-Cola.
Wow. Agbada or suit?
Agbada, please. Suit is very hot. I'm not a lawyer.
Blue or red?
A blue.
Blue, wow. Breakfast or dinner?
Breakfast.
Morning service or evening service?
Morning service.
Gari or fufu?
Fufu.
Wow. Groundnut or cashew nuts?
Groundnut. Cashew nut is too big.
And lastly, books or videos?
Videos, please. Who has that time to
Wow.
Videos, yes.
Bishop, we thank you so much for your time, and thank you for walking us through some very important, significant parts in the journey of your life and ministry. And all we can say that we recognize is that God is never late. He may come later, and that makes you the latest. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you. I invite everybody Saturday, 26 October 2024, 10 a.m. at City of Testimonies, Ikorenebon, Emmah Calabar, to the 5-star celebration. Don't forget, Saturday, 26 October 2024, 10 a.m. right at Faith Mansion World Center, 8 Mass, Ikorenebon, Calabar.
Calabar, see you there and don't miss it. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned. Thank you, Bishop.